Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, and if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm Amy, and this week I made some home fried tortilla chips with an absolutely insane queso dip. I also made a puff pastry sweet treat, and I got my seeds started for my monsoon garden. But first, let's fry up some of those chips. I poured about 2 inches of oil in my Dutch oven, enough that the tortillas will have plenty of room, but we don't want them to touch the bottom. I'm using canola oil since it's what I had in my pantry, but you could also use avocado oil, grapeseed oil, or even olive oil, although not the extra virgin olive oil, just the regular refined type. I started heating this oil over medium heat on the stove. While that oil's heating up, I cut up a whole bunch of white corn tortillas. They don't have to be anything fancy, just quartered to make triangles, and I used most of a pack of 120. My oil is not up to temp yet, so I'm also getting the cheeses ready for the queso dip. The first and most important is a ½ pound of American cheese, the sliced kind from the deli at your local market. This is because the stabilizers in American cheese are what makes the dip smooth and prevents the dip from curdling or separating. I roughly chopped mine up, but you could just rip it into pieces or even add it in whole slices if you want. I just like the smaller pieces because they melt quickly. The next cheese I am using is a ½ pound of pepper jack, or an 8-ounce block, which I shredded up for easy melting. You can also use regular Monterey Jack if you don't want any heat, and you'll get the same texture at the end. Although make sure you guard it, because someone may just come and steal your cheese. Now our oil is ready. To fry tortilla chips, the oil should be between 350 and 375 Fahrenheit. I like it on the lower side of that because I have found that 375 tends to fry really fast, and I have almost burnt my chips, but 350-ish works great. Now we just drop a handful of tortilla slices. I think I added about 12 or 13 a piece. You don't want the pan overcrowded by dumping in 20 or 25 chips because they won't fry well if they're too packed in. Let these bubble. And keep a close eye to see when they just start to show some golden color around the edges. When that happens, take your spider or tongs or even a slotted metal spoon and flip them over in the oil so the other side gets some color. When you see them getting a nice light golden color, you'll want to get them out of the oil. They will continue to darken and crisp up a little more as they cool, and we don't want them too dark. This took about 2 minutes for the tortillas to be finished frying, so it doesn't take long at all. Just keep going in batches until all the tortillas are fried. I think I probably fried up about 80 or 90 tortillas. I used most of the 120 pack I had, and it took me about 15 minutes to fry them all when the oil was at temp, and heating the oil took about 10 minutes. If I noticed the chips frying really fast or getting too dark, I adjusted the heat down a little. If they were taking a little long or not getting golden enough, I checked the temperature of my oil again to make sure it hadn't gotten too cool, and turned it up if it did. I want to keep it right around that 350 to 355 mark. So the reason I'm frying my own, have you noticed that store-bought tortilla chips, they just keep getting thinner and thinner all the time? Most brands nowadays are so skinny and fragile that they can't really do their one job anymore. I like to make salsa or some type of dip, and the tortillas break apart without really even being able to hold any of the salsa. Frying or baking my own chips has solved that problem for me, because these are nice and strong and will hold up to any chunky salsa or thick, hearty dip. I can make the quantity of chips that I want, and they will always be fresh. As they get removed from the oil, place them on a wire rack over a baking sheet to catch the oil if you have one. Since I don't have one of those, I lined my largest strainer with some paper towels and tossed the chips in there, which ended up being really convenient for salting. I sprinkle salt on the chips every few batches and toss them with the paper towels. As the strainer filled up, I would just dump them in a gigantic bowl. These chips look amazing. They are so nice and crunchy, and these will be able to go toe-to-toe with any dip or salsa I can throw at them. Now that those are done, let's get back to the dip. First things first, I messed up earlier and had a can of cream in the ingredients, but what you want is evaporated milk, a full 12-ounce can. Pour the evaporated milk into a medium saucepan and then add both of the cheeses. I made sure to break up the pieces of American cheese so they didn't end up in a big clump. I don't know if it matters if the cheese is in clumps at the moment since I've never made this before, so it's possible it really doesn't make a difference as long as all the cheese goes into the pot. Stir it all up and then heat this up over low heat. You also want to stick with this really closely and stir it often so nothing sticks. The cheeses will slowly melt down and become very creamy and very rich. For me, this took about 7 to 8 minutes for the cheeses to melt down. Also, this should not come to any sort of a boil or a simmer. It should just get hot, steamy, and very melty. I also made sure to break up any larger cheese clumps that were being stubborn. When I got to the point where it looked like everything was melted as I was whisking it, then I double checked it with a spoon to make sure everything was nice and smooth except for the little pieces of pepper in the pepper jack. With the cheeses ready, the next step is to add a can of diced green chilies, and you want to drain these. I did drain mine, but there wasn't much liquid in them to begin with. However, if you have a can that has a lot of liquid, then definitely drain it so the brine doesn't mess up the consistency of the cheese sauce. Lastly, a dash of cumin, no more than 1/8 teaspoon because cumin can be really strong. Then give it a good stir, make sure everything is nicely combined, and this is ready to come off the heat. And there you have it, the easiest, most amazing dip I have ever made in my life. This is ridiculously addictive and has so much amazing flavor, and it is only very mildly spicy. It will thicken more as it cools, but because of the American cheese, it will never become a weird cheese mess. Even when it's refrigerated, it still stays nice and creamy. We made rice bowls for dinner with these chips and dip, and here is proof that these chips are ready for a challenge. This bowl is cilantro lime rice, carne asada seasoned steak, black beans, and pico de gallo, and this chip did not even flinch. No more flimsy chips here. Now on to dessert, and this is strawberry turnovers. Like the queso, I have never made these, but I had puff pastry in my freezer and I didn't know what to do with it, so I found a recipe that looked really fun. I started with a very, very cold sheet of puff pastry and gently smoothed it out so I didn't tear it. It is important that it is really cold, like just barely not frozen cold. I cut this into 6 square pieces and then added my strawberry jam. The recipe I found includes making the filling, but I didn't have any fresh strawberries at the moment to make it, so I tried it this way, and it was awesome. You don't need a ton of filling, just a dollop on each square really, a good spoonful. I shaped the jam to fill what would be the pocket when I folded the dough over, but the jam is really sticky, so even getting it off the spoon was just a little tricky, but it all worked out. Then the dough gets folded over and sealed so it looks like a triangle. I forgot to do this on the first one, but using a little bit of water helps to seal the dough. This is also where it helps if the dough is really, really cold, because it gets more floppy and difficult to handle as it warms up. When all 6 are closed, put them on a parchment-lined baking sheet and use a fork to really seal the sides of the dough. I was way more gentle with the sealing than I should have been. You'll see in a second. I also made a cut in the top for venting and brushed them with an egg wash. These bake at 350 Fahrenheit for 22 to 25 minutes or until they're golden brown. And here is the explosion. Like I said, I think I was too gentle with the sealing part, but honestly, these were so good that it didn't matter anyway. But next time, I will do a better job sealing these up and maybe cut an additional vent. These need to go on a rack to cool completely, since if they're warm when the icing gets drizzled on them, the icing will just run right back off. Now for the icing, And this icing is the most simple thing ever, just powdered sugar and water. I measured 3/4 of a cup of powdered sugar and then added just a couple little spoonfuls of water. This won't be enough to get the right consistency yet, but I really don't want to make this too thin. Stir up the sugar and water and keep adding little teeny bits of water until you get the consistency where the icing will drizzle off your spoon, but it's not too watery and thin. Now, just take the icing and drizzle it all over the little turnovers. I went with a more traditional little stripey kind of pattern, but you could just glop it on with a knife if you really want to, or make swirls or whatever makes you happy. Even though I didn't seal them perfectly, these were very, very easy to make, and it is crazy how good they were. I will definitely be making these again. Moving from the kitchen, we also got a bunch of new seeds started this week for the monsoon garden. Arizona is in high summer right now, and it is regularly over 100 degrees, which means the spring garden is just trying to survive the extreme heat. Soon though, the storms will come, which will help the plants already in the garden and give them some much needed relief. However, time waits for no one, and we need to get seeds started for after the monsoons. We started with a bin with a mix of potting soil, compost, and perlite to keep the soil light and aerated. I do have to say, my husband was such a gem on this day. He helped so much with getting the trays and cups all filled up with soil, labeling the cups, helping keep things moving in the background so this didn't take all day. I am so grateful every day for his support. As I planned what seeds would go where in the trays, I always write everything down in a notebook so I can keep track. And let me tell you, it was some serious time traveling when I bought a 5-star notebook like I used in high school. I didn't even know they made those anymore. How funny. Now, I'm just popping seeds into the trays with the help of my trusty chopstick. I've tried using actual gardening tools for seed starting, but I always end up just going back to a chopstick. It just works. I also soaked some beans overnight to try starting some of those. I had jade, kalima, and blue lake green beans, as well as some black beans and pinto beans. As you can see, the next day when I planted them, I had a very curious little helper who thought what I was doing was just the coolest thing ever. He has settled in so well and he's just such a joy. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really helps my little channel to grow. Please leave a comment. If you try making any of these recipes, let me know what you thought. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope I see you back here next Sunday. Bye!